Story 1. Take care of your eyes. Wear eye protection, mind what you're doing, change contacts on time, etc. A few years ago, I got a small piece of metal in my eye, which became infected. Navy ships are unpleasant environments. The infection was misdiagnosed 3 times. After 4 days, everything seemed okay. On day 5, I woke up with my eye basically rotting from a rare bacterial infection. I was fortunate enough to keep the eye, so I appear unaffected, but my vision was permanently damaged. Long exposure to sunlight causes migraines if I don't wear sunglasses. I've had to learn to do many things in different ways. All around, it was a life-changing event. Story 2. Attended a friend's funeral. He was riding in the back seat and didn't wear his seatbelt during a road trip. The driver was sleepy and hit a divider, the car spun out, and he was flung out. He died during the ambulance ride, only 19 years old. The first thing I do when I get into any vehicle is to buckle up. Story 3. If you're traveling, never mess with the locals. I've seen people pick fights with one of the locals, and 10 of his friends came out from every shop around them. Story 4. Iguanas. This happened about 25 years ago on a rare cold South Florida morning. My dad, a big guy with a soft spot for animals, found a frozen one in our backyard and decided to bring it inside in a closed-off room to warm up so that our dogs didn't get to it while it was offline. As soon as that thing warmed up, it was like a bat out of hell. Teeth, nails, and tail whipping cut him up pretty good. Eventually, he got it out with a broom, and all my dad muttered was "ungrateful bastard." All right, this comment is getting more traction than I anticipated. Yes, I am aware that iguanas are an invasive species in Florida. I am not aware if 25 years ago, they were deemed as big of a threat as they are now or if that was as common knowledge back then. What I do know is that my dad took it as an opportunity to instill fascination and curiosity in me as a young child. He was able to safely show me its spines and talons and explain that reptiles are cold-blooded and what that meant. Even more than the mini science lesson, he showed me compassion for living things. Especially as a young child, I think I would have walked away with a very different impression if he just killed it. Would that have been the right thing to do? Maybe. But I think the happy memory and lessons I learned that day were more important than a single iguana being let free. Story 5. Swans during mating season. Think about a goose on steroids and 3 times bigger. They've been known to chase down jet skis and knock the driver into the water for getting too close to their nests. Story 6. Recreational use of benzodiazepines. I had a very rough 4-month patch in my early 20s where I thought abusing Xanax bars would be a better alternative than dealing with my life problems head-on. At the beginning, I was taking 4 to 8 milligrams a day just to sleep all day and avoid my problems and thoughts. By the final 4th month, I was taking 16 to 24 milligrams daily just to black out and sleep all day. I remember nothing other than waking up and eating small meals, plus more Xanax bars to fall back asleep every day. I lost about 35 pounds during this period and had very intense withdrawals when I stopped cold turkey. I still have rebound anxiety and body tremors 7 years later. I do not trust myself with benzodiazepines to this day and prefer to use beta blockers to help with the rebound anxiety nowadays. Story 7. As a homeowner who has had a long list of tasks to do for a very long time, I do not mess around with plumbing or garage doors. No way. Absolutely not. Story 8. I saw a 65-year-old on a cane knock a 22-year-old fighter out. Not down, not over, and not using his cane. The fighter boy was bullying a smaller teenager. Crazy old man strength is real, folks. The older man may have trained, but he still has the chops. Story 9. Cacti with fuzzy spines. Compared to the ones with big pointy spikes, these are the real terrors. It took about a week for all the tiny little spines to get worked out of my skin. Story 10. As a homeowner, never use one of those 3-day bath remodel makeover companies. They flat out lie, claiming they don't use subcontractors, yet had to admit they absolutely did. Below are the things I had to go through as briefly as possible. One of the workers left a bottle of urine in my bathroom when they had to leave because one guy sliced his hand open. I have another bathroom they could have used. They installed an illegal S-trap for the plumbing for my sink. which has been banned in many states for years and is basic plumbing knowledge. The screws in the lifetime warranty bathroom started to rust after 2 showers. They messed up my downstairs faucet when trying to turn off the water valve. Installed my ceiling fan with spliced wires outside the junction box, just exposed in my attic, which is a fire hazard. Never pulled permits, another lie the sales team told us. Installed a defective tub with a big bump that should have been noticed immediately. Broke my child's toy room wall because the tub they used was too big for our bathroom, but instead of informing us, they just forced it in and tried to cover it up with zip board, taking about 3 inches off the wall behind the door. Luckily, we caught them red-handed with all this, and we did not pay them yet. They literally had to redo the whole bathroom and hire many other people, plasterers, electricians, plumbers, etc., to do the job correctly at 30% less than what I was going to pay them. It's almost completed, but it was an absolute nightmare. Just use a well-respected private contractor. Story 11. Moose. You don't mess with moose. In driver's education, they taught me that if you ever think you're going to hit a moose, steer into the ditch instead, because hitting a moose will almost certainly kill you. If a moose thinks you're a threat, they will stomp on you until they no longer think you're a threat. Adult moose are bigger than most horses. Do not mess with moose. Story 12. Trains. They have absolutely no opinion of you and even less regard. I nearly witnessed the death of a half-dozen people who messed with a train. In the town where the college I attended was located, there was a train track that ran right through downtown and divided the bar scene. Well, one night, a train had decided to rest in the middle of downtown, preventing drunk college kids from traveling to more bars to get more drunk. A bunch of people decided to cross underneath the parked train, and admittedly, I too was tempted. While a group was crossing underneath, the train suddenly lurched forward about 6 feet. One guy hit his head and was bleeding pretty badly, but everyone else was unharmed. I thought I was about to witness people being separated from half of their bodies. Another time, as a kid, my buddy and I were putting pennies on railroad tracks to squish them. We decided to try it with a quarter, but when the train passed, the quarter shot out and put a bullet-sized hole in the concrete structure behind us. Story 13. Don't mess with others' food. Stealing their food off their plate can result in getting stabbed with a fork. My brother learned this the hard way. And messing with their food, like adding stuff that typically wasn't meant to be in it, could result in time in a federal prison. A cousin did time for adding peanut powder to a person's meal as a joke. Only they were allergic to peanuts. Story 14. Do not try to sit in some elderly person's favorite seat. Do not try to change any table arrangements, like placing the coffee pots differently than they have been used to for the last Thursday of every month for over 20 years. You will never hear the end of it for the rest of your sorry life. Just keep it as usual, which can be hard if you are new at your workplace. Story 15. Men who say all their exes are crazy. Edited to add, huge red flag. If he thinks they are all crazy, who is the common denominator? Also, if they are really all crazy, who wants to date a man with a bunch of crazy exes? Story 16. Too many people think that because they go camping a few times a year and shoot their guns from time to time, they can do whatever they want in the wild. Nature only has one goal: to kill you and turn you into plant food. We spent millions of years adapting to get away from nature. That doesn't mean we have mastered nature or are immune to it. Respect it and take calculated risks when you're out there by yourself. Story 17. Sleeping black snakes. I was out mountain biking early one spring morning, and this enormous black snake, which in my memory was 8 feet long and as big around as a beer can, was lying across the trail in a patch of sunlight. Being the savvy and experienced outdoorsman that I am, I knew he had probably just woken up and was still sleepy. So, I picked up a long stick and gently nudged his tail to encourage him to move aside. He was not sleepy, no, not even a little bit. He whipped his massive and toothy head around so fast I never even saw him move. 1 second he was lying there, the next he was hissing in my face. The only reason he didn't tear me up is his tail was so far away from his head that I was still out of reach after he reacted. I slowly walked away backwards, and he didn't pursue me. I took another trail and left him to reign over his place in the sun. Story 18. Internet trolls. They have literally got nothing better to do with their time and will take you down to a deep, dark trench if you allow them to. In my 20s, I allowed too many of them to wreak havoc on my life, and it took me to some dark places. Story 19. Strep throat. I got it 10 years ago and thought it was just part of a cold that would go away in a few days. It ruptured my appendix. I'm severely immunocompromised and got it again 4 weeks ago. I couldn't swallow or breathe without crying in pain, so I got antibiotics but still felt scratchy for the next week. I figured it was just damage that needed repairing. I went back this week after once again being unable to swallow or do anything without crying. It didn't go away the first time and came back with a vengeance. I've had strep for a month now, and I can't take my life-saving medications because of antibiotics. I am hoping this doesn't turn into scarlet fever, rheumatic fever, or toxic shock syndrome, because that's a thing too. Story 20. Sparklers. I squeezed 5 or 6 together and lit the tip, thinking they would all light at once and burn down slowly, like one sparkler does. Nope, that explodes in a 1,000-degree mini fireball. Second-degree burns all over my hand. Always one at a time, always hold them by the stick at the end. Probably common sense, but I'm obviously not very smart. Story 21. Semi-tires, especially if they're on fire. My dad lost a good friend and coworker from a semi-tire blowing up when the drum seized on him and caught fire. In a moment of panic, he stood in front of the tire instead of off to the side when he hit it with the fire extinguisher, and it killed him instantly when it blew up. I've also seen my fair share blow up as a pilot car driver, and it's not gentle. They'll absolutely destroy quarter-inch steel fenders and suspension components if it's an inside drive tire, and can destroy your car as well, which is why you never pass a semi slowly. Story 22. Cat owners, do not mess around with ringworm. We foster cats, and I am legitimately more concerned with ringworm than I am with fleas. Fleas are pretty simple to deal with. Revolution on the cats, baths if they're too young for revolution, and diatomaceous earth on the carpet and soft furniture. Ringworm is much, much harder, especially if you have multiple pets dealing with it. It's contagious to humans and other mammals, so both cats and dogs can get it. If you have a litter of kittens, they will also pass it back and forth several times. We were able to raise a litter of 5 kittens with only minor human breakouts, but it required more work than we've ever done, even with extremely ill cats. We kept them in a room without soft furniture to avoid having to treat the soft furniture. Cats got medication twice a day, oral and topical. And the room got an intense deep clean every other day. Ringworm, if you aren't aware, isn't a worm at all but a fungus that creates bald, itchy rashes and often takes the shape of a loose ring of raised bumps. The spores are what is contagious, and they can hide in shed fur and hair. So cleaning up debris is particularly important. Deep cleans would start with an extremely thorough sweeping, using baby wipes to get up even the thin coke lines dustpans like to leave. Then every soft bed and towel goes into the wash without touching anything. Toys get washed or thrown out and replaced. Hard surfaces are cleaned and wiped down. The floor is mopped until it sparkles, and then literally everything I could reach got sprayed down with a heavy layer of a fungicide cleaner. I left that to sit, then came back for another thorough wipe and mop. I used a towel to dry the floor before I let the kittens loose again, and then the towel and every stitch of clothing went into the wash. Story 23. Water. I'm a swim instructor and lifeguard. I've seen the best swimmers get cramps and need to be rescued, and I've seen instructors turn their backs on students who subsequently go underwater. Only go in the water if you have someone with you or a lifeguard nearby. Don't go boating drunk. I've had friends whose family died due to that. Story 24. People who share every waking minute of their lives and their children's lives on social media are indicating that they don't respect boundaries or privacy. My sister-in-law did that a lot with her kids on Facebook, and it made me nervous. Plus, showing off your house with pictures of the outside and where your kids' rooms are? No, stop. Story 25. Mountainous roads during or after a blizzard. I have seen a few people just die from turning corners too fast and hitting oncoming traffic. Bridges freeze and traffic backs up for hours. I have seen plenty of cars spinning out on black ice. Story 26. I used to work at the Ford plant loading trucks onto train cars for shipment. As we moved around the plant's storage lot, We had to cross train tracks multiple times an hour, as well as be on and around a train as another one was hooking up next to us. It takes forever for those things to stop, and the devices they installed to absorb the impact if the train conductor didn't stop it quickly enough were massive and deeply buried in the ground. Constructs of large piles of steel, timber, and dirt that absorb the shock and keep the train from plowing down the loading ramp and into things. Don't mess with trains. Don't try to zip in front of one at crossings. Don't try to race them. Don't cut them off in an intersection. Let them be. You have no idea how long it takes for them to safely stop, and even less idea how long it takes them to stop in an emergency. Even when it's going slow, it takes far longer than you think. And the sheer power when it hits something, even something designed to take the blow, is immense. That stopping pylon it braked against was something like 4 steel I-beams, the same they use in construction, set in a brace formation with a massive rubber and tar pad that would take the connector buckle and stop the train. It was buried under tons of dirt and concrete and had more wooden piles set there to further absorb shock. Each timber length was about 3 feet thick on all sides. One day the train went in a little rough and hit the target hard enough for the train car to shake. It was empty and going maybe 10 miles an hour, but the impact was such that it set off car alarms in the lot around it, the new cars, and we felt it in our chests like a bomb went off. The ground gave a bit of a shake because the iron beams tried to lift out of the ground. Do not mess with trains. You have no idea what the force they can generate is like. None. 18-wheelers have nothing on one of these. A big cargo ship does, but a fully loaded train can often weigh tens of thousands of tons and can move at over 100 miles an hour. I've seen what happens when a mere 6 train cars, empty, being pulled by an engine pair can do to a pickup truck when they are going at 10 miles an hour, and believe me when I say the truck was obliterated. The second law of motion is here, and it's a law for a reason. That train may only be going 10 or 20 miles an hour, but it weighs thousands of times more than your little SUV, so don't try to get past it because you don't want to wait for the train to pass. Not only will the conductor not see you in time, by the time he does stop, the engine is going to be miles past where it hit you, and everyone in the car will be in grave danger. Do not mess with trains.